everyone. Today I want to talk with you about fertilizing orchids. Most of people in my comments they write that we cannot fertilize orchids while they are blooming, and I have new orchids and I have old orchids, and I learned something, and today I want to share with you what I learned. Here on the table you see my old orchids, all of them my old orchids. They bloomed in my house. Those big ones, they were blooming orchids when I bought them from Walmart, and I made video when I took them to the rain. When it was raining, I took them to drink, and in that video I didn't show you the top blooming part of these orchids because I didn't want anybody to think that these orchids bloomed in my house. That's why I showed you only the leaves of those orchids. And from that time till today, it's 6 months passed since I bought these orchids. It's 6 months, and in these 6 months they are reblooming for me. And these small ones I found from Lowe's, $1 each. I told you already, and if somebody is watching my video for the first time, I'm telling for them. And these orchids were miserable when I bought, and now you see they are in full bloom. And for me, the plants are like human beings. I treat them like humans, because why I think like that? Plants, when they are in blooms, when they have buds, I think that they're equal with pregnant ladies. When we are pregnant, do we eat? Do we take vitamins? Of course, yes. Everybody says yes. The answer is yes. And why we cannot give the plant, our plant, the food? I don't understand that. And for me, in growing plants, there is no rule. I don't listen what people say. I listen my plants, what they say, what they need. And you see, in my previous videos, I showed you most of them were in full bloom. I said they're in full bloom now. And then since that time, it was 2-3 weeks ago, I think, that time they were in full bloom. And now you see, they are continuing growing. They are spikes. See? And how many buds I have. In my first video about the orchid, which I showed you how I fertilize them, I noticed that some of my orchids, they have bud blast, and I knew that time, I knew that reason that my orchids, they stayed dry for a long time, and that's why they had bud blast. Why I knew that? Because I know from other plants, I have a lot of flowers in my house, and when they're in bloom, they drink a lot. If we leave them without water for some time, their buds will get blasted. That's why we have to water them on time. And then somebody told me on the comments that bud blast, it was not because they were dry, because they wanted to drink. It was because I fertilized them. And you see now how many times I fertilized after that video. And you see here I have new spike. It's continuing the growth, and it has lots of buds. Here I have only one bud blast here, and you see how many new buds I have because I fertilized that orchid. And here you see in each of them they are continuing growing their spikes. It's the primary spike, it's not secondary. And see how many buds I have. I had couple of bud blasts because of not watering on time. And now I learned something that when they are in bloom, I have to water before the soil gets dry. I have to water them often. Now I'm watering them often, and each time I give them fertilize. And if we don't fertilize our orchids, what we will see? For example, if I'm pregnant lady, if I don't eat good, if I don't take vitamins, what will happen? The baby will take everything from my body, from my organism, and it will the baby will develop anyway. It will take everything. There is nobody can say that the baby will be healthy 100%, but he can be healthy or he can be weaker than the other babies whose mom took vitamins. It depends from the mom's health what kind of baby we will give birth. And that's why for me plants are equal with human beings, and we have to understand our plants, their needs. And I see that when I see that they feel from flowers, from leaves, I feel that they want to eat and they want to drink. And today I noticed that my flowers, they were looking down, and then I started feeding them. Today it was time to feed them. And after feeding, I showed my daughter, and I asked what she noticed when after feeding. She said that flowers, they are looking happy and they are looking up, they are straight. Even she felt she is not a person that interested in growing plants. Even she felt that there is some change in these flowers. And those orchids I will show you. Here I have big orchids. These are from Walmart, and see, they are growing their secondary spikes, and at the same time they are growing new leaves. Constantly they grow new leaves. And how I can not feed them? If I don't feed them, these flowers which are in bloom, you see it over there, I have secondary spike. I didn't cut the primary spike, and it started blooming. And if I don't feed now this orchid, these flowers, from where they will take energy? And of course they will take from the leaves, from the roots, and this orchid becomes weak day by day, and it can dry even the lower leaves, and the lower leaves become slowly yellow, and they will fall. But I don't want that. That's why my opinion is better to feed the orchid than not to feed. That's why I feed my orchids all the time, if even they are in bloom. You see, they are growing. This orchid is blooming and growing the primary spike. This is primary spike. See, and every time I fertilize it, and it's becoming happy, healthy, and I didn't see any bad sides from these orchids. And here, this one is growing new leaf. Here, see, even it's the winter now, 20th of February, and here I have two secondary spikes which are growing, and new leaf which is growing, and I feed this, of course. If I don't feed, it will take energy from the leaves, from the plant, and then I will end with a weak plant, and I have to complain to people that my orchid is not blooming. And here, this is orchid from Home Depot. It was weak. These leaves were fluffy and wilting, and then I started feeding, and you see how it started growing new leaf here. All of them, they constantly grow new leaves, and they constantly grow new roots. Even these small ones, mini ones, you see here, it's growing new leaf and it's growing new air roots. You see? And that, my opinion, is better to feed the orchid than not to feed. You see here I have only one bud blast, and after that, how many buds, new buds I have? It's because I am feeding them. And most of people are asking me if I have drainage holes in these cups. Of course I have. Now they're sitting in water. When I take out, see, the water comes through these drainage holes. I drain them well. I take all these pots into other container and place again in this container. They sit together like this all the time because I have small kids and they can drop them anytime. That's why, to be on the safe side, I put them in these containers. I cannot leave my orchids separate. They grow together in containers. Here you see now winter time, and it's growing new leaves, and every time my leaves grow bigger and bigger. I don't like when the plants grow the new leaves and they are smaller than the old leaf. It means there is some lag, that the plant doesn't get enough fertilizer, and it means that the plant is hungry. That's why we have that kind of problem, or root problem, or fertilizer problem. That's why we have to pay attention to the leaves, to the roots, to flowers, and everything. We have to see, and what they want, we have to give them. We are human beings and we are selfish. That's why we want these flowers to bloom continuously, and we want them to stay for a long time, for months and months, and that way we don't want to give that orchid plant. We are scared from bud blast, but what kind of result you will have after that? Of course, your plant will become weaker, and it can stay until it gets it returns its energy and becomes strong. It will not bloom. These orchids, they bloomed 6 months ago. It was August, and these orchids were sitting outside under the rain. I will you can find in the description below if you didn't see that video yet. And these orchids were in bloom that time. Now after 6 months they are blooming again, all of them. In this orchid I put cakey paste, and it was 1st of February, it means almost 3 weeks ago, and I didn't see any results yet. Nothing changed. It's still like when I put the cakey paste, how it looked, and still it's looking like that. I didn't see any change. Maybe here some change I see. The node becoming little bit larger. maybe I will have cakeys, but now I didn't see big change. So that's why that thing I want to share with you. And if we come to my new orchids, I will show you what happened with my new orchids. Let's follow me. Before I go to show my new orchids, I wanna tell you about this fertilizer, because most of people are asking me still. There is some confusing. Some people don't understand how much fertilizer I put in a bucket of water. I take rainwater. I always have rainwater. I have rain barrels outside in my outside of my house, and I bring them. This rainwater I bring and I warm it. I never put cold water, icy water in my orchids. I warm it and I put from each fertilizer 1 spoon for this 4 gallons of water. 1 spoon from each. I use 3 kinds of fertilizers and I put from each fertilizer to this 4 gallons of water 1 spoon. And I drained this orchids already. I put here in this bucket, and this bucket I prepared it, but was extra, and I will use this for my new orchids. And this water, some people even asking me what I do with this water. I told in my previous video, and they wanted to ask again to be sure. This water I use for my other plants which are growing in my house. On those plants, on those flowers, I use and I put this fertilizer water in my plumerias, in my Hoyas and other plants. Whatever I have in the house, I use this water for my other plants. I don't use separate fertilizer for them. Okay, I will show you my new orchids now. These are my new orchids. I showed you these orchids, and I showed you this orchid which had very dry root, and here you see it has healthy, juicy roots. These roots were so dry, extremely dry, and even that time I could easily take this orchid out from the pot. Now it's impossible. The roots filled this pot. You see, they are green and healthy. I told you how I water extremely dry roots, and you see the result. I have very good result. I'm very happy with these orchids. And here these orchids, most of them, they were not fully open, the flowers, and now they're in full bloom. No buds are left. And I fed these orchids, these big ones, but these two I didn't feed yet. Today I'm gonna feed them both. Those ones, those mini orchids, I fed that day, and I forgot I told you not to feed right away when we bring them home. And when I feed these big orchids, I forgot that I don't need to feed. I was staying in my house only for 1 day when I took that video, and that with that I had with this one I had bud blast with this one, because I fed this orchid before it adjusted to my house. And these orchids which I fed after 3 weeks, when they were in my house 3 weeks, and after 3 weeks I fed them, and see, no bud blast and no flower fall. It didn't drop any of its flowers. And this one, you see, it's still safe living. and nothing happened with this orchid. And with this one, it had, when I was taking my old video, it had only maybe 4 or 5 flowers, and these flowers are new. They are, even you see, they are small in size than that ones. And these ones they opened after I fertilized. I didn't have any bud blast in these orchids, and that you see the leaves, they are changed. They became more dark green. This one was very I didn't like. I told you that I didn't like the Whole Foods orchids, but because of these flowers I bought these orchids. And you see how strong they are after fertilizing. They're firm and strong, and the leaves are more dark green. And this orchid, it opened all its flowers also, and it didn't have any bud blast. These ones, they are in my house for 3 days. They are new, and I kept them. These two orchids, two orchids are new in my house, and this flowers, it had 3 flowers, and this flower it opened in my house, and this bud is going to be to open. And see how beautiful orchid, it's new in my collection. And here I want to show you other orchids. This one is new also, and it's going to open this bud. See, I bring them home and I put them in cooler room, and slowly I bring them to that room where I want to place them. And this orchid is in full bloom and no bud blast here. You see, it's safe. But with 3 orchids I had bud blast. This white orchid, after fertilizing, it blasted its buds. You see, 3 of its buds didn't open, and they died. They are dry. And 1 flower, you see here. And with this one also it happened after fertilizing. It happened. It fall most of its buds. See, and flowers also. Here, see, I put all of them here in this pot. And now if we take the good sides and bad sides, bad side is less than good. You see that with that orchids nothing happened, and only with few of them it happened, bud blast happened. And this one I fed it by mistake. I didn't need to feed that right away when I brought it home, but by mistake I fed it, and I had some bud blast. But I fed that one also, and nothing happened with that one. And it depends from the orchid how they react to the new food, because we don't know how they were fed in the greenhouses wherever it was grown, and what kind of fertilizer they used. That's why to the new fertilizer they react differently. I'm telling you, they are like human beings. Sometimes we can eat some certain food, and sometimes we cannot eat. Some people get a stomach ache from food, and some people they can eat that food. And that way we have to decide, you see, if we can feed our orchids or not. If you want to save flowers, if you bought this orchid for the decoration purpose, it's better not to feed. If you want this orchid to bloom, to rebloom again for you, and you want to have healthy orchid, it's better to feed the orchid. You see the results. I am showing you everything. I'm not hiding something from you. And on this table you see all of my orchids which are new, and you saw my old orchids which are growing in my house, and I constantly feed them even they're in bloom or they have buds. And I had only few bud blasts with my old orchids. It's not because I fertilized them, it's because I didn't water them on time. And some people asked me if I grow plumeria plant. They saw in my previous videos this plumeria plant. Yes, I grow, and it finished its blooming on that branch, on that one, and this one wants to bloom soon. Here you see this, it has flowers and they are ready to open soon. In 2 days they will open. And this is what I wanted to share with you, my experience. Good, I have old orchids and new orchids, and choice is by you to feed your orchid or not to feed. It's up to you. And if you found this video beneficial, I hope you learned something new. Even I am not old orchid grower, I am new in orchids, and I don't have different orchid types. I have only Phalaenopsis orchids, because in our local stores they say sell only Phalaenopsis orchids. And I am new in growing orchid, but in this short time I learned a lot about them. I am new in orchids, but I'm not new in growing plants. I have different flowers, but orchids, they are new for me, and something I learned and I wanted to share with you. Thank you for watching. Hope you found this video beneficial and you learned something from me. I will be glad, and thank you for your comments. I like your comments. I like you all. You are my friends. I like people who grow plants and who love growing plants. I am learning from you and you are learning from me something. And happy gardening. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and don't forget to put thumbs up if you like this video and share it with your friends. Happy gardening. See you next time. Bye.